Hello everyone, Mr. Nacho here, and today I wanted to share with you a build that I in fact did not make, and I actually need an expert here to explain it. With me right here is Spoon. He is actually the guy that created the build. We have 3 different variants, which you can find in the description below. If you go to the Remnant 2 toolkit, we'll cover 2 of them today. And normally I would be able to wrap my head around just a simple weapon or a build, but when it comes to Monorail, it's actually extremely complex, so I will need help from Spoon to explain it. So Spoon, can you please tell us how the Monorail works in general?
The Monorail is probably the most unique weapon in Remnant 2, not by exactly its mechanics, but by how you need to use it effectively. Otherwise, you will end up blowing yourself up and your teammates, or you will do absolutely no damage.
So what I know about the Monorail, it's a charge weapon, just like a bow. But when it comes to the bow, you would like to release whenever the perfect timing hits. But with the Monorail, you can actually overcharge it. How does that work?
When you charge Monorail, it goes up to 200% damage, at which point it's fully charged. But you can keep holding the charge button to keep charging it, at which point it will charge at the same speed, but every 5 frames after fully charged, it will test to see if you should die or not. And there's about a 33% chance of you dying, so it's very, very dangerous to overcharge it. When you do overcharge it, and when you charge Monorail in general, it increases its base damage, which doesn't happen with any other weapon in the game. But Monorail keeps increasing its base damage from 0% to up to 900% if you have the mod active.
Right, and if you have the mod active, you cannot explode yourself, or how does that work?
While you have the mod active, after you fully charge the weapon, you have exactly 2.015 seconds until you explode. Until then, you can charge it to your heart's content, maxing out, as I said previously, the 900%.
All right, and what is the realistic DPS that we can expect from Monorail?
Monorail can hit a with prisms round 8,000 DPS, and certain situations 10k, even maybe 12k. On dummies, you can get way higher, up to 20,000 DPS, but that you will never be able to achieve in an actual boss fight, due to the fact that every time you shoot Monorail, you have a recoil animation that takes a few frames to complete, roughly 2/3 of a second. But that 2/3 of a second is a very dangerous time to be in a boss fight, because a lot of bosses will hit you during that time.
All right, so in general, the builds that we are about to showcase will be the top DPS ones that you can get for Monorail, but honestly, it would be extremely difficult to get the top DPS with this weapon whenever you are playing solo. It would be much better if you take it into co-op and actually someone else can take the aggro from the boss, because there's a lot of setup required for Monorail to actually be used to its full potential. All right, so let's go through the build really quickly. The first setup that we have is Hunter Gunslinger. Well, there's no surprise there. It's the best for a gun damage. Okay, so we have Hunter's Focus because it gives us 25% ranged and ranged weak spot damage, and it also applies the mark to the target, which increases our crit chance by 10%. Then we have obviously Gunslinger with Bullet Storm to increase our charge speed, reload speed, and on top of that it says that bows and crossbows gain 15% crit chance, but for whatever reason Monorail gets it too. I think it's because it's the same mechanic of charging up, even though it's not a bow or a crossbow. Anyway, we will be at 90% crit chance whenever we have everything up. The crucial part of this build is that we are at lightweight, so it doesn't really matter which armor you pick and choose. All of them will have quite low resistances, so just do whatever you think looks best. We need to be in lightweight because of the new 0-hour amulet. It increases all of our damage by 20% and gives us 10% crit chance as long as we are in the lightweight. When it comes to the relic, Tranquil Heart is nice because it's passive regeneration. There aren't really too many defensive layers on this build, so whatever relic you feel the most comfortable with, just use this one. Then we have obviously the Archer's Crest to decrease our firearm charge time by 25%, which is great. Then we have Haste to decrease it even further. We have the Probability Cord because we have 90% crit chance, so it's just basically free damage for us. And the last thing is we have the Leaking Gemstone. As we have previously mentioned, the Monorail is extremely dangerous if you are not using it with mod, so the Leaking Gemstone will actually allow us to have the mod up almost all the time. When it comes to the Monorail itself, we have Supercharger on it, again for the decreased charge time and bonus crit chance. When it comes to our melee, it's Krelax with Transference, just for some extra ammo. It can as well just be the Hero Sword. You could also just have Tainted Blade on it if you want to apply Corroded this way, but we have the Corrupted Rune Pistol. I don't know why it's cutting off its name, but that's fine. We have Fetid Wounds on that. And also the Death Brand, which is its mod, will increase our weak spot damage even further. So it's up to you which melee you want to go for. It's just that the Corrupted Rune Pistol is actually decent at mobbing, and it will give us bonus weak spot damage, and it will also apply Corroded. So this is a great secondary. When it comes to the Prism, this is the one that I'll be using. This is the one that I actually managed to roll while I was creating a video on how to make prisms, which is, well, perfect. So what is very, very important is the weak spot damage and the crit damage. The crit chance is okay. We don't need to combine it with the ammo reserves. It's not necessary. Then fire rate and reload speed are not really all that important anyway, because fire rate does not scale very well with the charge speed. It does a little bit, but it's not extremely impactful. Then range damage and weapon ideal range is just another little buff. And then obviously the biggest one is the sharpshooter, which is the increases range damage by 75%. There's also one that increases the weak spot damage. It's not as good as sharpshooter. And also there is Brutality, which increases damage done by 100%, but also increases the damage you take by 100%. It might be something to consider since you are not really very tanky in this build anyway. What I have as the standalone fragment is the evade speed. It's very nice because you want to evade quite a lot. The other ones that you could go for are cooldown reduction, mod duration, skill duration, and firearm charge time. Other than that, the three fragments that you actually want to have are the range crit chance, crit damage, and weak spot damage. One that you could also consider is again firearm charge time. If you have something like Jack of all trades, then it will do just as well. It's not gonna be exactly the same number, but it's going to be extremely high anyway. When it comes to the traits, we have Flashcaster because there's a lot of setup that we need to do, and doing it a little bit faster just helps. Then we have Swiftness, 8 points, just because we want to be as quick as possible. We have Vigor maxed out because even though we are not very, very tanky, it will still help us take a hit or two. We have Spirit because mod power generation is crucial in this build, because otherwise the Monorail will just kill you. Expertise to reduce the skill cooldown so we can have our Hunter's Focus and Bulletstorm even quicker. We have 10 points in handling to reduce the sway and recoil. Next up we have Fitness to increase our evade distance by 30%, and you'll be evading a lot because you don't really have any possibility to take damage and live through it. Next up we have Chakra to increase our mod duration, because again this gun is extremely dependent on its mod. And then we have Perception that increases our haste by 3%. What does the Monorail's mod actually do?
Simple part of Monorail's mod is that it reduces your charge speed by 25% and recoil and sway by 75%. Then it also increases your critical damage and critical chance by 1% for each 5% of the charge meter filled, which happens very quickly because of the charge speed we have.
Alright, so what it means, we can, with mod active, we can actually overcharge it for longer, which just basically results in more damage done.
Additionally, Monorail is the only weapon that increases its base damage, which results in it being very, very powerful with lifesteal and mod generation, both which go off of your base damage, not your total damage. Currently, it deals 250% base damage, and at maximum overcharge at 900%, you deal 2250, which at 3% will full heal you if you have only 100 health.
So this is the first setup. I know that the intro was quite long, but we will just go right into the boss fights right now to show you how it works. And again, we'll do it with 2 Monorails at the start, and then I'll just swap to some other build that I can take aggro first, and then I'll let Spoon handle the bosses himself, just to show you how important it is to use this build in co-op scenarios. Unless you are an absolute god at this game, then just by all means use this as a solo weapon as well. Also, one more thing to add is that if you are unsure how to use it, and if you are afraid of just offing yourself with the overcharge of this weapon, then Black Cat Band, the Challenger Primary, and the Handler Primary will actually save you. So if you are just learning this weapon, then it would be wise to just have some sort of a backup in case you just explode yourself. Anyway, let's just go into the boss and show you how the build actually works. Alright, so let's see how this build fares against the pot. It's relatively good showcase because it has a lot of HP, kinda hard to hit the weak spot, and we'll need to actually dodge during the fight, so let's go. Alright. Show me the weak spot. 40k. Alright, that's nice. Again, 40k. It's almost dead. Ooh, I'm almost dead though, dude. And that's that. All right. Okay, let's go. Oop, we need to dodge. All right, again. 40k. That's insane. I missed the weak spot. Don't go away, please. We got him. Easy. Easy. I almost died.
Yep. I did too.
Alright, we definitely didn't need like 25 tries to get it. Alright, so this was the first version of the monorail setup. As you can see, it actually requires a ton of skill to use properly. And if you thought that that one was very dangerous to play, then wait till you see this one. This is an absolute glass cannon. This build, you cannot take a single hit, but your damage output would be much, much higher. You can hit some crazy single shots. Maybe the DPS won't be too much bigger, but you can almost one-shot some of the bosses with this one. Alright, so the way that it works is that we are using still lightweight armor, even though in this case it doesn't really matter too much DPS-wise. It's just easier to dodge with lightweight. We have the Invader as our prime archetype, and we have the Miracle Worker, the Wormhole. It will increase our damage of the next shot by 300%. We'll be able to get some crazy numbers. It's like up to 120, maybe 140k in perfect conditions. Normally it will be around 80 to 90,000 damage if you hit weak spot and you crit. Next up, we still have the monorail with supercharger. Nothing changes here. We have the Krelax with transference, and we still have the corrupted rune pistol with fetid wounds. Now the tech begins. We have the broken heart. The way that it works is that it will keep you at 50% HP. And why do we want that? We want that because of the new amulet, which is called the K9 keepsake. And what it does is it increases all damage by 2.5%, crit chance by 1.5%, and crit damage by another 1.5% for every 5% of total health present as gray health. I know that it's a mouthful, but basically what it does is if we are at half HP and the other half of our HP is the gray HP, we will get maximum benefits of it. And 10 stacks give us exactly 25% all damage, 15% crit chance, and 15% crit damage. There is no better DPS amulet than this one, especially for this setup. The way that we can guarantee that gray health is always there is both Broken Heart, which removes half of our health, and Ring of Phantom Pain, which will continuously keep filling all of the health that we are missing with gray health. So our K9 keepsake will be at 10 stacks all the time, granting us the maximum benefits. Again, if you get hit with this one, you are almost guaranteed to die. So it would be a top tier glass cannon, just one shot and you die, but also one shot and potentially the boss dies. So it's a very, very high skill setup. Again, we have the Archer's Crest, the Leaking Gemstone, and Probability Cord. So these three just stay the same. When it comes to the traits, we have changed a little bit. We now have 10 points in Swiftness instead of 8. We still have Flashcaster. We have 6 points in Gifted, 10 points in Vigor, Spirit, and Expertise. Then again, we have Handling, Fitness, and Chakra, because again, mod is king for this weapon. Alright, with the K9 keepsake, it's kind of difficult to keep it at 10 stacks exactly, because the math in this game is not mathing correctly at all times. So what I mean is it will round up your health to the higher number, and it will also give you like 50% with like 0.5% extra of your HP, so you will be most likely at 9 stacks of K9 keepsake. To counteract that, you would need to self-damage yourself and then heal back up to 50%, and then it works for whatever reason, but I think that this is just a temporary issue and it will be solved in the future. Just make sure that you are at 10 stacks. You can self-damage yourself with Enigma mod and some other ways. You could also eat the Mystery Jerky and you will be fine as well. You are one shot in this build anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much. Alright, let's go and see the damage that it can do. And as you can see, whenever we go into the shooting range, it will get rid of our gray HP, so we need to use our relic. And as you can see, it keeps filling out our HP with gray HP. It will unfortunately probably just stay at 9 stacks. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why. Spoon, if you could give me a hand and shoot me once. Alright, that's great. We'll be at 10 stacks right now, and there are a few steps that we need to take to actually see the big number. The first thing we need to do is activate the mod on the Corrupted Rune Pistol, shoot the thing, activate this mod, activate that, We also need to have the shark stacks stacked. We need to do the wormhole, overcharge, and it was 87k, almost 88. And also our corroded ran out on this one, so it's very difficult to get it, but once you do, you will see some insanely high numbers. Just for comparison, the standard Ravager has like 120,000 HP. Fairen Phelan has about 80,000 health, so you would be literally able to just one-shot this boss with this setup. Let's just go to Ravager though and see how he likes it. All right, let's go and see the Ravager. Oh no. Alright, and that's Ravager done. Alright, and right now I will use like a normal setup and Spoon will be using the Monorail. I will try to take the aggro so he can actually set up the big damage, and you will see both my perspective and his on how this boss fight looks like. Let's go. Alright, one phase Kaela. And as the last boss, we would like to showcase the Custodian's Eye. Let's just go in and see how the build works. Alright. The master of the monorail himself. So this would be all for the showcases that we have for you today. I have to say that it took way more tries than I expected. This gun is extremely difficult to use, but the reward is huge. You need a ton of game knowledge and know the boss patterns and whatever else, and also you need to get a little bit lucky. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Thanks again to Spoon for making this build, explaining it, and actually being able to use it way better than I ever was and will be. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.